I told you that I would make a video every day of September discussing gynecological cancer awareness and sharing my own story and talking about famous people you might not have known had gynecological cancer and how you can figure it out if you haven't, and maybe give you guys a space to talk about your own experiences with what are basically forgotten cancers specifically for women. I grew up knowing that I would have cancer. Nobody told me this. Nobody fear-mongered me into thinking that I was going to have cancer. I just knew. I grew up knowing that both of my grandmothers had cancer. One of them even died before I was born from cancer. And so it was just like a weird thing for me to fixate on as a child, that I knew that one day I would have cancer. It just was a given in my mind. I know that seems like a weird thing to fixate on, but it was the 80s and there was weird shit going on. So also, growing up in the 80s, one of the biggest TV sitcom tropes was whether or not a woman on the show would be able to have kids. There was always that scary episode where it was super emotional, and like they would get the phone call from the doctor and they'd find out whether yes, they're fine and they can have a baby, or no, they can't have kids. And I remember thinking that that was probably the most terrifying phone call you could ever get. And all I wanted to be as a kid growing up in the 80s, in what at the time I realized was a very loving and supportive household, was I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to have that experience, and those tropes really did a number on my psyche, let me tell you. So I struggled watching those things, and that was my biggest fear. I remember going to my very first gynecologist appointment and specifically asking, am I okay? Am I going to be able to have kids? Because that's really all I cared about at that point. I had no idea what any of the other stuff was, what gynecological cancers were. I didn't even know what a pap smear was for. And I had parents that were pretty vocal about talking to me about things, but that was just nothing that ever got told to me. I did hyperfixate on that, and so I wanted to have 3 kids, had a very specific plan, what gender would come when, what their names would be. Even before I even met my husband, I knew what was going to happen, but little did I know that one day I would get that phone call about not being able to have kids anymore, and how badly it threw me for a loop. September, again, is Ovarian and Gynecological Cancer Awareness Month. I'm going to tell you my story more and more as the month goes on, and like I said, I want to give you a space to also share. So I don't want to sugarcoat it. I don't want to engage in the toxic positivity that a lot of cancer survivors are either pigeonholed into or forced to put out there using. I want it to be real, and I want you to understand that not all cancers are pink, and some of us get left behind. So that's the start of my story, and I'll see you tomorrow.